Alright, so I'm finally making a video on the HGLRC Veyron 35CR. I did not make a video when the rest of the reviewers made their videos because I was told that the components were going to change. So basically, if the specifications are going to change, I don't want to review it because that's not what you guys are going to get. So obviously, everyone else has proclaimed this to be the best ever, and whatever it is that their video was about isn't what you're seeing in front of me and isn't what I was shipping to customers. So kind of, I don't know why people made videos on things that aren't in production. It doesn't make any sense. It's basically like, here's a video on a prototype and it's the best ever, but it's not what you're going to get. Kind of stupid in my opinion. So I waited and I decided, I'll just, I'll review what people are actually going to be flying, because I want to, sort of give my opinion on what people are actually going to be getting versus just like, something that was put on a drawing board and tested out. So the main differences are the motors and the stack. Obviously the frame is the same. This is the analog version. They have also DJI as well. There's a 4S version and a 6S version. So I have here specifically the analog 6S version with the 6S motors and the 2-board stack. In the first videos that you probably saw, they originally came with an all-in-one board, like a single board. I think it was called the Zeus 45 amp all-in-one. Now they're replacing it with a F7 board plus a separate 4-in-1 ESC. And the main reason they did that is because the MPU 6000 gyro was basically hard to find, so they had to basically change the specification on the product, and they sourced in the BMI 270 gyro for the F722 flight controllers on here. That's basically a 20 by 20 stack that's inside there. And they made a 6S specification for a different motor size. So I think originally all of them came with a 2105.5 motor and a 4S and a 6S KV. Now what they're doing is, with that 2-board stack, on the 4S version, you're going to get the 2105.5 motor and 3600 kV, but if you get the 6S version, you're going to get the 2006 motor and 3800 kV. I think, was this right? Sorry, 2800 kV. Sorry. So yeah, that didn't make any sense because it has to be lower for 6S. The same jump van, 5-bladed props, obviously pusher configuration. We got the landing area here in the bottom with the foam pad and this carbon plate that holds all the prop guards in place. Does include all of the foam guards, of course, but I did not put that on. That's mainly if you're flying indoors, you want to protect your furniture and stuff like that. Otherwise, if you're not doing that, the plastic guards aren't going to really scratch up too much stuff unless you're really flying fast. Analog version comes with the Caddx Ratel V2 and their Zeus 400 milliwatt video transmitter. And you get the hammer antenna. I think the digital version comes with the Nebula Pro, I believe, and the Vista. Obviously, for all the versions, the weight's going to be a lot different. So I know everyone's like, well, how do you compare this to the Cinelog 35, which I don't have with me. I'll let someone borrow it. But my Cinelog 35 was a 4S motor version on DJI, and it was a 2004 motor. And it's a lot lighter than this setup here, so it flies really differently. And so the analog version of the Veyron comes in at like 267 grams, and then the digital is like 295 grams. Whereas I think my Cinelog 35 digital was like 236 grams. So the Cinelog 35 digital version is like 30 grams lighter than the analog version of the Veyron 35. So basically there's a pretty big weight difference between the two models, and I think it mainly comes down to a beefier frame and bigger motors. Obviously 2006 is going to be bigger than 2004, and obviously 2105.5 is going to be way bigger than the 2004 motors on the Cinelog. So basically what it comes down to is, if you're looking for a frame that's a little bit more beefier, maybe handle more crashes, the Veyron's probably going to be a little bit better in terms of the durability factor, especially on the frame. The frame is a lot of weight as well. Not sure about the prop guards. They're fairly beefy. I mean, they're really nice and solid. But in a hard crash, the Synolog prop guards are going to break, and I think these prop guards are going to break as well. But maybe you're going to have a little bit more likelihood it'll survive. But then again, it's also overall more heavier. So even if these prop guards are stronger, more mass does mean more energy being transferred to the prop guards, which means even if it's stronger, it's likely to break as well. Now, for flying characteristics, you're going to need a way more power on the Veyron versus the Synolog 35. It's because it's just simple. Bigger motors, way more power. 2006, a lot taller stator. If you're flying more aggressively, which for cinema, I'm not sure how much you're going to need that, but maybe if you're chasing stuff, skateboarders or bikes are going really fast, maybe you're going to need a little more power versus kind of going more slowly. On a Synolog 35, that's probably more suited for more slower flying, cinematic flying, and then this one here is going to be more for like aggressive flying, faster flying. I think that's going to be sort of your main differences between the two different models, and because it is heavier, you feel the extra weight too. So it's while it has bigger motors to give you a little bit more power, at the same time, I think you do give up a little bit of agility because it is overall a lot more mass you're kind of throwing around. And then the last big major difference is the way the action cameras are mounted. So still have the typical GoPro action mount here on all the HDLRC products, but again, like all other HDLRC products, the camera mount is hard mounted to the frame. So you're going to get more vibrations, a little more jello coming through from the motors in the frame into the camera area versus the Synolog. They have those basically a separate dampening plate with those rubber grommets, I think like 5 or 6. And that definitely smooths out the video, and you don't get any jello on the Synolog 35, even when you're flying fast and kind of aggressively. So that's another thing to be sort of concerned about if you're looking for the absolute best quality video with no jello. Then you're going to probably have to come up with a different mounting solution here for the Veyron because you do get more jello and vibrations on this setup. So I did fly this with this new action camera. I'll have a review on this one a little bit later. This is the Akaso Brave 8. It's a nice little 4K camera, but it doesn't have good stabilization, so I turned it off. And what you're going to see here in terms of footage is from this camera, but no stabilization. I did run it. I did actually use the 4x3 mode to get the maximum field of view on this camera, and I ran it through GyroFlow to stretch it out to 16:9. That's the only thing that I did to the video. But yeah, you're going to basically see all the little shakes and jello and all that. I didn't use any ND filters, so you're going to see exactly how this looks in terms of the HD or the 4K video coming out of this. The tune is not the greatest. It could definitely be better. I think, because it is using the BMI 270 gyro, they probably haven't applied any of the additional filtering you're going to need for that gyro. So, with a newer gyro, I think a lot of these companies are still going to sort of figure out, how to tune these things properly. It is a little bit more wobbly than the Synolog 35 for sure. But again, the Synolog 35 that I have is on the MPU 6000 gyro, and it was tuned like 6 months ago. So who knows what they're using now? It's possible that the Synolog 35 is using the BMI 270 gyro. I don't know. And that's the thing with, if you want to find out, you're going to have to contact the retailer or the manufacturer directly. I don't know what things come with and what you're going to get in the box because things are changing right now. I know I get that question all the time. Oh, if I order it now, what am I going to get? I have no idea what you're going to get. You could get the MPU 6000 gyro or something else. It really depends on what they happen to have on stock in hand at the time when they built it, and I have no information on that or any sort of background information, insight on that whatsoever. So yeah, unfortunately I can't help you there. And that's the kind of thing right now with a lot of things. With the shortages, it's hard to know what's in stock, what kind of components you're going to get. The manufacturers are doing this right now, all of them. They're making adjustments on the fly. So models that you're seeing for reviews that were made 6 months ago, they're going to have possibly different parts in them today. So they're probably going to fly a little bit differently. I already can tell that things are tuned differently out of the box on the new gyro versus the old gyro. People say that there's no difference, but I can tell. Either that or the companies aren't tuning them correctly yet, or they're not tuning them in the same way. Anyway, for this specific model, I definitely see a lot more wobbles compared to the Synolog 35. So I don't have, I can't do a apples to apples comparison. Oh, you should get a Synolog 35 and put a flight controller in there with a BMI gyro and compare it. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. If you have the time to do that, you go ahead and make that video and let people know about that. I, unfortunately, don't have time for that kind of exercise. So again, the question I'm going to get is which one's better, the Varon 35 or the Synolog 35? Again, as I spoke earlier, it really depends on your flying style and what you're going to be using it for, and also the kind of video footage you want. So if you want the bigger motors, the bigger frame, the heavier model for more power and faster flights, this is probably going to be one you're going to look at, and maybe you want to change out the camera mount. But if you're flying mostly indoors, smaller spaces, not flying slower, then I think the Synolog 35 is probably going to be a better fit for you. So those are kind of my two general sort of like categories of like who this might be for. But you have to make your own judgment for whatever that you're going to be using it for, based on the information I've presented in this video. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.